I feel so honored that you're with me tonight. I wanted to first just introduce myself and kind of orient us to what we're doing here. For those who don't know, my name is Abbie Henson. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice at Arizona State University, and I'm also the host of the Critical Conversations podcast. So when I started grad school, I thought I was going to single-handedly tear down the prison system, and I thought I would do this through policy change. And then I sat in the rooms with some legislators, and I got really disheartened. And I saw what was happening. What we're seeing now is that a lot of the changes that we're seeing in policy can very easily be flipped with a change in office. And what I attributed that to was a lack of a change in culture that preceded it. So that is why I changed my goals. That's why I teach. That's why I have a podcast. That's why I do these kind of community events, because I really believe that in order to change culture, it's through conversation and exposure and building familiarity. And so I hope that you all leave this event feeling empowered and that you all have a place in changing culture. Please help me in welcoming Prentis Hemphill.
Do y'all want to do a practice? I see some people are like, all right, shifting already. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. Nice to see you. So we're going to do a centering practice. And really, to start, just find yourself in a position where you feel supported but alert. So you're not just like drifting off. And we're gonna, we don't have to perform center. We can just find our way there, just being honest with ourselves. And so let yourself get curious about what you're thinking right now. Maybe what your mood is. Is it familiar or not familiar? And then we can start to listen to sensations in our bodies. So we can look for places where we feel tight, where we're holding, we're bracing. We can find places that feel like they're in motion, digesting, whatever it might be. You can feel temperature, that's also way in. And start to let that attention to sensation become a little bit bigger. Turn the volume up on sensation, on feeling, as much as is comfortable for you. Getting curious about yourself. And getting curious without trying to shift too fast, without trying to become better. Just get to know yourself. We're going to kind of stay in that zone with that curiosity over control. And we're going to drop into our centers. A lot of cultures have words for this place. This pelvic bowl. It's kind of the deep drop in you, a heavy part of your body. I always think of inviting my breath to that place rather than forcing a deep breath. Letting an invitation come in that place. Like, can I breathe here? And can I also let myself rest into that place? Like it's my come from, it's where I come from. That center place. You might tilt your pelvis, play with that a little bit, see if it helps you drop in there a little bit more. One of my teachers used to wiggle her belly a lot to do it. You can do that. And then from center, that place, that kind of, I think of it almost like a place where nothing and everything is happening in us, that deep place that's hard to touch. And letting the energy from that place extend through our bodies along the dimension of length. So letting yourself play with breathfully, how do I extend up and down, opening the bottoms of my feet to listen to the texture of the earth below me, the ground, the floor, and listening all the way into the core as deep as I can, core of the earth. Letting gravity connect you to this place, this earth. You are from this earth. You are of this earth. You are earth. And then simultaneously letting yourself extend upward, connecting up to the sky, to the heavens. Opening maybe the top of your head, your crown. Letting your jaw go. Letting your shoulders go a little bit. And breathing. There's not a lot of breathing happening in here, apparently. Nice, I can hear it now. And then we'll center in a couple more dimensions, so feeling yourself side to side, feeling the width of your head, shoulders, arms, legs. Getting curious about your own body. You can feel yourself and be like, let me feel these thighs, let me feel these calves. Widening, softening, falling open like a book. And dignity, I didn't say, is where we might feel and express, length is where we might feel and express dignity. Width is where we might feel and express connection. So letting your dignity, connection be online. Can I let myself out? Can I let you in? Can I be here with you? And then feeling front to back, your depth, feeling your history, your ancestors, the ones you want to be in this room, maybe not all of them, but the ones that you want to invite, let them stand at your back. And then feeling in into your front, letting yourself really arrive present, softening the front of your body, softening your eyes and the sockets, your face, your throat. Arriving here if it is safe enough for you to do so. And then lastly, I like to draw up from my center what I'm committed to, what I care about, what I want to organize my life around. What I want to be, what I want to express, what I want you to feel from me. So you do that. What are you about? What are you committed to? What do you care about? What do you want people to know and feel about you? And let that start to come up through you. Let it break through some blockages you have, some fear, so that what you care about can be lived out through you. And then take a moment, just thank yourself for any moment that you were curious rather than controlling yourself, any moment where you got curious. And that's it. Welcome.
Love that.
Was that all right? Okay. Clap.
Yeah.
It's like clapping when the airplane lands.
I love that. I think one of the things that I really learned in my own practice was approaching fear with curiosity.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this maybe in the last one, but I was listening to this Michael Pollan podcast episode, and they were talking about an LSD trial with terminally ill patients. And this one woman had stomach cancer, and she was in an LSD trip, and she had her eyes closed, and the guide was working with her, and she said, I see this monster in my stomach, and it's really scaring me. And the guide was like, okay, well, rather than running from it, can you ask why it's there, what it has to say? And I remember this like moment I had in hearing that and being like, oh, when I'm feeling scared, I can just approach it with curiosity rather than fear.
Yeah.
And feel so much more grounded.
Yeah. So much wisdom in our fear. So much wisdom. I mean, it's just a ball of like assessments, reactions, projections, and all these things get balled up in that fear, and we try to stifle it or put it away or sometimes we amplify it and doom scroll. But yeah, I think the point that you're making of like, how can we stop and get really curious about what our fear is alerting us to? I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
I think one of the things too, when I was doing these book club events, I would start with a body scan and go through and bring attention to each part of the body. And one of the things that I would say, which leads into the discussion around the dualism, is like, everyone take note of the fact that just your mind was able to change your body. Like, just bringing awareness to a part of your body was able to release the physical tension. And so really captivating the fact that mind is body, body is mind. And that's one of the rooted things that you mention in this book, and I'm wondering if you can talk to us about how the dualism of mind and body was formed and how you're attempting to break it.
Yeah. Yep, I can talk about that. I could write a dissertation about that.
But you're not an academic,
I'm not any good at school. So mind-body split. It's a wild thing that we really all got trained into. Like, how do we think over the feeling animal parts of ourselves? I really think that's a lot of it. It's like the unruly body that lives and dies and excretes and sometimes smells and longs and does all these things that we wish it didn't. We wish it didn't, because it takes us away from the kind of ideal state, this body as machine, as thing that moves us from one productive moment to another, you know? And, you know, as somebody who was trained as a therapist, people would come to me often because they're like, you know, I'm crying spontaneously and I don't know why, or I can't focus at work, or whatever it is. It's like my body will not control itself. And part of what I'm trying to say is the world that we've created is actually anti-body in all the ways that it's anti-livingness, being alive, and aliveness. It's anti the body in that same way. It's anti the unruly, unpredictable, animal, finite, living and dying messiness of the body. So this split happens, you know, the same way. It's like the same time this world gets constructed, you have to construct the people of this world. So there's a lot of, you know, the early Enlightenment scientists and philosophers, the idea of dominating nature, dominating body, dominating woman, dominating child, dominating indigenous, dominating black, that is the same logic. Because underneath it has to tell the myth of unruly, emotional, savage, whatever it is all the story of the body. And so in that, the body becomes rational and non-emotional and productive and all these things. And I'm trying to break that, not to say that there's nothing interesting in that. I think there's a lot that's interesting in that, but to say that I'm curious about a world that we build where we get to be in these bodies and actually live through and in these bodies without spending most of our lives preoccupied with the contortion and the suppression and the, you know, getting in line that's required. And even more so now. I mean, I feel like the political moment that we're in, I know you say we're not going to get too much into this, but I'm going to get into it a little bit anyway. I think the tendencies, it's a tightening. It's a mechanistic way of doing things to the nth degree. It's a homogenizing impulse that's based in a fear of that same stuff, our aliveness. That's what's underneath it to me. If I were to think about the kind of whatever, you know, people say spiritual, emotional, all these things, that feels like the thrust of the moment, you know, the kind of intolerance of our aliveness. And I work with the body to break out of that, because I find that, you know, my life, I used to say when I started Somatics that it wasn't about people being happy all the time, but I really wanted my people and all people to feel their lives.
Yeah.
All parts of it.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I really liked what you said in the book. You were talking about how everything we experience is experienced in our bodies. And I think we forget that. Like we think about our experiences and we intellectualize them and we think about the emotional impact that it has, and then we do talk therapy in order to like resolve the trauma without actually recognizing that all of those experiences as well are felt and experienced in our bodies.
Yeah.
And so we do the like mental work to try to work through the trauma, but we don't often do the physical work because we think of them as separate.
Yeah. I mean, we can think, like I can think about flying an airplane. I always joke with my wife that when I'm on an airplane, I never go to sleep in case I'm needed in an emergency. So I'm just sitting there like, I'm here, I got your back. I think that I can do it. But my body has no understanding of what would happen in there. I know I got to pull this thing and push these buttons. But I say that to say it's like we can have ideas. We can even understand concepts. But if our body is not able to make those moves, especially in moments of pressure, do we really know them? I think about embodiment and learning as very, I'm not sure if they're the exact same thing, but there's an overlap. You know, like, do I know it if I haven't digested it through my body? Because I can have ideas. That's why people can have really great analysis and all this stuff, but they don't know how to talk to the person sitting next to them. They don't know how to do it. Don't know how to live it. There's that disconnect between, it's the mind-body split, which I often say is not real.
Yeah.
It's just, it's an enforced, it's a trained way of being with your own experience.
So how do you digest it through the body? How do you digest?
Developing your awareness of what's happening in your body, developing an awareness, being in practice, and knowing. For me, it's like thinking is a full body experience. You know, it could happen just up here, but when I think with my whole body, it's more. How do I say? I feel like I'm able to connect with people more when I think with my whole body. I'm able to generate ideas that are not disconnected from my body and what my body feels and experiences, and the limitations are I mean, the mind is created throughout the body. It doesn't just live in your head. But ideas can extend beyond what our bodies can do. So when I say, you know, this is why I have this is what my schedule is going to be. I have eight calls today, 8 Zoom calls. If I run that through my body, I don't have 8 Zoom calls in me. You know what I mean? That's thinking with my whole body. But if I think, okay, well, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, and I take that out of my body, I can end up overextending myself. But when I think with the whole thing, and it's like, actually, I have 3 Zoom calls today. Maybe one of those is a phone call if I can negotiate it. That's actually what's in me.
It's interesting, the reaction I'm having to that is like, yeah, we've suppressed that so we can be productive. Because
Exactly.
if I was like, actually, I only have 3 in me, I think people would be like rolling their eyes.
Exactly.
Be like, oh, you're lazy.
Let them roll their eyes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Let more people roll their eyes.
I like that. That's a thought that's embodied. An eye roll. You can see a lot.
I used to joke that I stopped rolling my eyes when I became a therapist, because you can't do that. You'd be like, what in the... So I like forgot how to roll my eyes. I grew up rolling. I mean, we used to roll our eyes and our necks and everything. But then I became a therapist. I was like, you know, I'm relearning.
Yeah. So I feel like there are 2 pieces to embodiment. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
2 pieces. I don't know. I'm excited to
I'm an
hear.
academic, I told you. I think in boxes. So there's like the feeling part, and then there's the embodied practice. Like you are the embodiment of joy, the embodiment of whatever. And to be the embodiment of something is, I didn't realize, maybe, and maybe I'm wrong, but from your book, like that is something that is practiced. And yeah.
Keep going.
Okay. And so Like, one of the things you said that I was like, oh shit, when you were like, we practice every day how to communicate.
Yeah.
Even if it's unintentional, we are practicing. Like, all of our actions every day is a practice.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if you can talk about, because I think, well, first of all, a question is, when do practices become habitual? Mm-hmm. Like, at what point in our lives do things just become habitual? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's varied, but then thinking of like, okay, if I want to become this thing,
yeah,
how do we get over the fear? Because in practice, there's the concept of failure, and there's the concept of fear. And so how do we practice to become an embodied version of what we want to be?
Sure. Okay. What do I want to say to that? Yeah, so embodiment is this funny word because we use it to talk about what we have in us now, what we are already currently embodied in, and how we become embodied in things unconsciously through training, through growing up around people. We learn the emotional, relational contours of the world through what we witness and what we do. We embody those things. Embodiment is also having awareness, situating yourself back into your own experience so that you can't fool yourself as easily in some ways, or think you're doing something that you're not. So embodiment is that developing kind of sensitivity to your own aliveness and being able to live with more of that, more awareness of that. So I use embodiment in those ways. And, I think things become habitual when we do them a lot. Mm-hmm. And I always go to my kid because I have a kid, mm-hmm. and she's 3, and I'm teaching her how to interact with the world in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And she's learning through how I move, how I interact with the world, how to be. And then she practices it. She practices saying the things that I say. Mm-hmm. She practices, she calls me Poppy, and she has a shirt. She says, I'm wearing my little Poppy shirt. She practices being me in some ways. And those lessons are moving very quickly. Mm-hmm. Those happen for all of us. It moves really quickly, and it gets inside of us before we're able to go, do I want this? Does this make sense? Is this what I believe? Do I align with this? It's already in us. You already practiced it. You already excellently mastered it. And that's the thing. We practice something over and over again, and then it becomes embodied, but also in a way unconscious. It doesn't require our conscious attention anymore. And so that's why we can embody things we don't believe in and not really understand that about ourselves. Because they're so deep in there, so practiced, we don't have to think about them anymore. So when we talk about practicing towards something, it's kind of a complex word, because in some ways, is this all right? Okay. Sometimes I can get into nerd gear and I can lose.
That's my favorite gear.
I like that gear too, but I want to make sure I'm also not feeling each other. Mm-hmm. There's just also this piece, I think I talked to you about this in the green room, that I'm also feeling these days of joy or awe. Yes, we practice them, but really we're practicing allowing them. In some ways. We're practicing you talked about fear and these things that come in, or the way that we've practiced avoiding joy or avoiding connection or intimacy. We have all of these coping and numbing and defense mechanisms that keep us from having certain kinds of experience. So before we can even go, oh, this is an opportunity for intimacy, you're going, I'm going to be checking my phone right now. I'm checking my phone because I'm feeling this stress, which is the potential for intimacy and connection with someone else. And so embodying intimacy in that situation is being able to be present with the fear, to understand its origins, understand it, but also feel it in our body and be able to work with the sensation so that we can actually experience the thing we long for. The experiences are here. And we've created so many blockages to experiencing them. But also there are things we can develop. I can develop skills around listening. But again, there's always a surrender inside of a skill, not to get too weird, but there's always a surrender, allowing the thing to actually transpire, that actually builds our skills. It's not just that's the rat race feeling. I'm going to embody this. I'm going to get better at this. Some of it is surrendering to what is already here.
So you brought up the intergenerational piece, and I think that's really interesting because one of the things that you talk about is how we have intergenerationally embodied a lot of isms, right? Sexism, homophobia, like all of the isms.
Yeah.
Racism. And so thinking about then, if we understand that we've embodied these social dynamics through an intergenerational lens, how do we seek up, or if we're not aware that we have those in us, then we probably aren't aware that we need to seek out opportunities to become aware. So how do we then become aware of the intergenerational isms that we have, that have become embodied within us?
Probably through relationship with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that gets skipped over. It's like, I think one of the things I wanted to say in the book too is healing is not just this individual thing that is going to happen, where we're going to go to the right therapist, we're going to meditate long enough, we're going to get it right. It is necessarily relational. It is necessarily relational because all of this is about our relationship with ourselves. Can I actually build a relationship with myself? Can I be open to and available to having a relationship with you? So healing has to restore relationship, which is what I say in the book. That's what healing is to me, is the restoration of relationship. So how do we do it? We do it through relationship. And somebody telling you.
Yeah.
Somebody being close enough in close enough proximity and skillful enough to do it in a way that speaks to the part of you that can change. You know, the thing about shame is not all bad, in my opinion. But I talk about it in the book. Shame can impede change if we feel that I'm so bad. Like, someone that feels that kind of shame cannot change. If someone is kind of arrested by shame, that means that they are so bad they can't change. And that's how they're going to hold it. So in a way, when we work with each other, it doesn't mean everybody's work is to work with everybody. I don't believe that either. But when we work with each other, and you are the person to give me an assessment, or I'm the person to give you an assessment or feedback, I'm going to do it in a way that speaks to the part of you that knows they can change, that is capable, that is resourced, that has dignity, and knows that we are here to change and transform. And I think we have to speak to each other that way. So how do we change it? I think it's through relationship, and it's through, we're all trying to be perfect and wait till we're perfect to interact with each other instead of like being messes.
Yeah, that's like been a goal of mine, to be more messy.
I'm going to achieve messiness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
had a lot of conversations with friends about that. Okay, but then, like, do you have to learn how to communicate in a way to know that you're going to tap into the other person's place where they're going to change? Or is it like, if you're the right person, it'll be natural?
I don't know that. Do you have to learn it? It's not learning like you're going to learn times table. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to... Are y'all still with me? Okay. Okay. There's something... When I close my eyes, I'm about to get really weird, so I'm gonna... We were talking about this backstage. It's like I start, I think it's important for each of us to know that there's something in you that is not contingent on the world or anybody else. It doesn't mean you won't be impacted by the world. Doesn't mean you can't be hurt, killed, all those things. There's something in each of us that is not contingent on the other's ability to even see it, understand it, know it's there. When you cultivate that, I can have a lot of complex conversations with a lot of different people because there's something in me that is that can't be touched. That can't be touched by other people's fear or small-mindedness or confusion. It can't actually be accessed. It can only be, it's like when they are ready to shed so that they can meet me in that place, then I'm like, oh, hello, I was waiting for you.
Oh, that's nice.
But that's the thing a lot of us have to cultivate in order to have these tricky conversations that we have, because in a way, we offer too much of ourselves up for the other person to see, accept, whatever it is. So I think you become the right person to have those conversations with the right people that you have them with. When you can know and experience the part of you that is not contingent on them. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's quiet in Phoenix.
They're locked in. They're locked in.
Okay.
One of the things that I want to nerd out about is the idea that healing can change not only our future and our present, but also our past.
Yeah.
One of the things, so I listened to this Radio Lab episode a while ago, and it was about memory.
Yeah.
And they did this study where they had people hooked up, and they were watching their brain mapping. And they found that when they had someone remember something, what was actually happening was they were creating a new memory.
Yeah.
Because you can never actually experience the same thing twice because you are always viewing it as an evolved version of yourself with more experiences. And so what that said to me was that memory or our past is experienced in a framework. And if our reality is our framework, then it makes so much sense when I read that in the book of that healing can change our past and our future. And I just want to pick your brain on that because I love that idea. I love that idea. And it's like it's a mind trip.
Yeah. It's more than that.
Well, sure. It's a body trip too. It's a body trip too.
It's even more than that.
Yeah, wait. Does it? Okay, hold on. So it changes the framework that you're thinking about, but then does it also change the experience? It must, right? Change the experience in your body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll say, there's a story I wrote in there, a really personal story, my first memory of life, which is a pretty traumatic moment in my of abuse. I grew up in a household where there was abuse, and there was this memory that I would play over and over. It was like my memory came online in that moment. It's like the first thing I ever saw in the world. And I would always go back to it, and I was just so it's like being thrust into life in this really upending kind of moment. But I'd done a lot of therapy, done a lot of work around it. But when I wrote it in the book, I stopped, it's like it closed me out. I stopped being able to enter back into the memory in the same way. I can see it still, but it's like EMDR or something. It doesn't activate me in the same way. It's changed. It's kind of grayscale now, but I used to be in it. And writing it and learning what was in that moment, seeing it. I mean, I literally took me decades to have a 360 of what was happening, to see everything that was happening. And when I did that, it was like, okay, you're done. Moving on. But it absolutely changed. I mean, it changed so many things. Changed my relationship with my sister, all of that. Changed my understanding of what was happening at the time. It's changed me. And I do believe we can, we don't know what time is, do we? We don't really understand what that is.
It's a social construct.
Yeah. And I mean, on some level, not to get too woo. Well, whatever.
Yeah, we're there.
The time we're in, I'm about to get all the way
We're
woo.
there.
I think a lot of this is like, your work is to feel your life. Your work is to feel your life, to feel your way through it, to learn the lessons for all of us, for the collective. So all the contractions and defense and resisting and all of that is avoiding the work. Now you may say, I need help, and that is part of the work, to be with others, to do the work that is yours. But I do think there's something to, I think that when we do our work, when we process through, it feeds into something. And I'm not sure what, but I think that it feeds into the collective.
Yeah, one of the things you say is that healing is an orientation rather than a destination.
Yeah.
So can we ever be healed in the past tense?
No.
No. Okay.
Do you even want to?
No, I guess
I mean,
not.
maybe you could, but like,
did you feel healed in that moment from that memory?
no.
Yeah.
No. I feel pretty committed to being a process.
Yeah.
My whole life. I hope that I'm a process till the day I die, to the moment that I die. And I hope I continue to be a process after that.
Is there a way, because I think to some people they would hear that and feel exhausted. Like they're just like, I just want to get there. Like being a process is exhausting. But I think that there can be a lot of joy in being a process. And I'm wondering if you can unpack that.
To me, denial, suppression,
Yeah.
those take a lot of work. And if you've done body work or anything like that and something moves in you, something leaves your body, suddenly you have a lot of energy, a lot of movement, things free up. Contractions take energy to maintain.
Right.
The stories that you have and the contractions that they create in your body, you go to sleep and you wake up and you, I put that on because that's what I believe about the world. That is energy. To maintain that, I've worked with people that I'm like, you've been flexing this muscle for 10 years. Do you understand what I'm saying? When you don't need it.
Right.
When you're bracing or you're holding, you are flexing your muscles for years. That's energy.
Right.
That's energy. So yes, that is also exhausting. And I think people get exhausted by that. I don't actually think being a process is exhausting. It's just being honest. It's being real. It's like, I'm not going to sit up here and say, I have everything figured out. I'm healed. Let me show you how. It's going to cost you $24.95. That's a lie. What I'm trying to encourage us into is not to be healed, perfect beings, but to be and allow each other to be the processes that we are. The rigidity of how we live and think of ourselves is killing us, y'all. We've got to give some breathing room to being alive, to the aliveness around us. We got to breathe. We got to shake. We got to feel. We got to figure out even what it means to be a human being in this moment, in this time. That's a big question. That question is up for us right now. And we have to, I think, get into it. They were like, let's call it What It Takes to Heal. That was the original title. And then I was like, no, that's not it. And then they were like, let's call it What It Takes to Heal. And I was like, it's kind of a trick because it's not, there is no period at the end of that sentence. To me, it's a question of what it takes to be alive, what it takes to mature, what it takes to grow, what it takes to surrender. That is the stuff. That's what we're up to right now. The healing of like, if you go to this retreat, if you buy this candle from Gwyneth Paltrow, if you do, you're going to heal. It's out. It's not real. It's not real. Let's get extremely real in this time.
Yeah. One of the things that you were saying how like, I know that when we do this work, it just like creates this thing. I don't know what it is, but it's like this collective thing. And I think one of the things that you emphasize in the book, and I think that's really like the permission that you give in this book to do self-work in a chaotic social time is really gentle and nice. Because I think sometimes in chaotic times and when you're someone who is social justice oriented, you're like, I have to put my energy here in helping the collective and helping others, and self-work can feel self-indulgent. And I really like the ways that you describe how that self-work is a prerequisite to a collective good. Like, a collective good cannot exist until there are individual goods, and an individual good cannot exist unless you're in the process of healing.
It's all like that.
Right, yeah.
You know? It's
Right.
all like that. It's, you're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
It's in a way, it's like, let's stop the bifurcating of it all. But let's move with intention. And let's develop a kind of, one of my mentors, Alta Star, she talks about self-possession, self-responsibility, not in an individualistic bootstraps way, but this life, someone put this consciousness in charge of this situation, and I want to be responsible to that. I'm going to move through my life with intention. And it matters how I do that. How I organize matters. Doesn't mean that you heal and then you organize, or you heal and then whatever you resist, but how you do it matters. That space that is hard to quantify and therefore commodify, the how, that's where the power's at. Because if I organize, I used to, train organizers, and we'd do door knocking. We'd do embodiment practice, and then we'd do door knocking. The first day, we would do nothing. And we'd just go door knocking and see what happened, and we'd count our numbers and all that stuff. And then we teach them centering. And we do centering practice in all these different ways. Then we go door knocking again. And the how, the quality of that stuff shifted dramatically. The depth of interaction, the listening, the attunement changed other people's investment in what we were talking about, changed their openness to what we were talking about. How matters. So that's where it meets. It's like, yes, we have to do this work, and how you do it matters. It's not just about the numbers. It's not just, I'm gonna go out here. How you connect with people is the stuff. It's the stuff. So let your center compel other people's center.
Yeah. One of the things that I try and do in my classroom, and usually at the beginning of podcast episodes, but I feel like your drop-in took it over in a good way, but I usually try and have a collective breath.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, we're running from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And so often we're bringing that, and we're not even really present.
Yeah.
And so to just take literally a moment, to take one deep breath, to be like, oh, we're here.
Yeah.
And it changes so much.
Yeah, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Changes time.
Yeah.
I think presence is really, that's the thing we're moving towards. Can we be present? And I think that's a measure. It's like, how much of me can be present right now? And I think it changes outcomes. It changes what happens next.
So one of the things that I'm so excited about, that I felt most motivated around, was this idea of visioning that you have. And one of the things that was so impactful to me was this idea that we are born into other people's visions, and other people's visions are all around us. Even thinking about just like this space, right?
Yeah.
Like this was someone's vision, and they brought it to fruition.
That's right.
The street that we were on, like the urban planning of this city, was someone else's vision that we just live within.
Exactly.
And thinking about just the visions of what it means to be a woman, what it means to be in a relationship, like all of these norms that we are born within are just other people's visions.
Yeah.
And it's so simple and so fragile when you realize that, when it feels so hard and so ingrained. And so I love, it feels very liberating and exciting to think that we can create our own visions outside of this. I'm curious how you even became aware of that. Like, how did you become aware, or when, I guess, did you realize I have a different vision for myself?
I've been a weirdo 100% of the time. So I don't know. I do, I think there was a point when I was like 11 or something where I felt really clear that there was like a choice point. And that in order to, I grew up in a town called Grand Prairie, Texas. And I had this moment where I thought, okay, either I'm going to have to do this internalizing racism thing to make it through. I felt it. It felt very clear. I was like, I'm going to have to internalize this and tell a bunch of lies. Or I'm going to have to go this other road and feel really alone. And I was like, well, I'm going this way. Because I'd rather be honest about what's going on. It felt like a spell was over everybody. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to be under that spell. I don't want to be under that spell. It's not true. And it requires so much pretending, like being in pretend land.
And energy, right?
So much energy.
Yeah.
I think maybe just my lack of energy has helped me throughout my life. I just don't have any energy for that. But that felt like a choice point for me. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. But having a vision actually for my life, I mean, the challenge of that is that I didn't think I would live past 23. I had this idea in my head, I'll be 23 and then I'll die. I didn't know how I was going to die. But where I was from, there's a lot of different ways. So I thought, you can live this way, but you can't live long in this world. So actually having a vision, I mean, I think it came through somatics, when I found somatics.
When was that?
I was in my mid to late 20s.
Okay.
A long time ago, y'all. I guess it was a while ago. And I stumbled into somatics. The fact that I'm here, I was real anti-feeling. I was out here like, I don't do that. I don't cry. I don't feel. I don't do none of that. That's what I was on. And I had a job that was making us all do a somatics training. And I was like, what is this? This is annoying. What is this weird stuff? They're talking about feeling your feelings. Feeling my feelings with my boss? I don't want to do that. And it changed my life. Just the invitation. And so working with a somatic therapist, she was like, what do you want from your life? And I was like, what? What do you even mean? What do you want to feel? What do you want to do? I was like, I want to make it through. I want to just have enough. I want to, I didn't have a vision. But she activated in asking the question, there was a longing in me. But I had so much disbelief. It felt so unsafe that it was pushed way down in there. But when there was room for me to long, all this stuff came forward. All this stuff came out. And it's not wanting. I wasn't like, oh, well, I want this and I want that and I want that. It's like longing to be known, longing for connection, longing for love, longing to be able to use my gifts in the service of others. These things came forward, and they started to, over the years, kind of craft themselves and shape themselves into what my life has become. But it was that activation. It was someone asking me.
So in the green room, you were saying when you could see my energy, you were like, I just see.
Oh, green room conversation. Yeah.
You're like, I can see people's energy. It's just how I see the world. I can see people's bodies and them living through their bodies.
Yeah.
So did that crack open when this was put in your face, or was it the process of surrender that you discussed earlier where it was like,
it was always there, but I was just using that. I don't know if it developed out of safety or I was using it in the service of safety.
Interesting.
I was using it to remain safe.
Right.
The seeing that I had. But finding this work helped me. I was like, oh, I can use that here. Our gifts are important. The things that we just naturally, uniquely bring to the world help weave something together. So I found a place for my gift, an expression for my gift, and yeah.
Yeah.
But I always
So.
Oh yeah, But, you know, I would use it to slice and dice people up. I use it for all kinds of things. You know, I had to learn to use my powers for good. Yeah. I use them for protection.
The dark arts.
Oh, yeah, I'd be like...
So I had my students read this piece by Galton. I was telling you about this, where he talks about how structural violence, or violence, but often structural violence, is the thing that distances our potential from our actual.
Yeah.
And you say that visioning is an uncovering of our potential. And some of the things that you mentioned that were suppressing your visions, I would say fit into the framework of structural violence, right? Racism, sexism, all these things. And so I'm wondering, you say that, and I know I kind of got this wrong, so you can correct me again, but you say that visioning is rooted in longing. Oh. And then you also say that conflict can be rooted in longing. And so then is visioning rooted in conflict?
I think in the way that, how do I say this? Is it rooted in conflict? I don't think so. But, you know, I don't know. Maybe somebody in here knows better than me. I think conflict is necessary. Yeah. And helps refine. I don't know if it's rooted. I think vision precedes all of that, or I think all of that precedes, like, there are things that I want to express, and then there's all these barriers that I then have to move through in order to refine and share what it is that I'm sharing. But I think the vision precedes that. Vision precedes conflict, but conflict can be a developmental tool.
Or like a catalyst or something.
It can be a catalyst, but it can also just grow you up. Just grow you up. You gotta grow up. Yeah. Conflict is the growing up because you're confronting all these other realities that exist.
Yeah, I liked that you were talking about conflict as expansive. But I guess...
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did.
I don't ever know.
Well, okay. I don't know if you used the word expansive, but it was something along those lines of like it helps us grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It absolutely helps us grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the major ways that we grow is through conflict.
So, okay, this kind of goes back to another green room
conversation. Okay.
Yeah, but it was on me. And thinking about like, okay, if conflict helps us grow, how far do we lean? Okay, good.
Can. Asterisks.
Yes, that's a good asterisk because if conflict can help us grow, how far do we lean into the conflict before it can be like maladaptive or problematic or actually hurt us? Or is the hurt always expansive and always helping us grow no matter what?
Oh, I don't know about that. How to lean in. It's a surrender. I don't know. You know, I always say like surrender is the thing that you really can't teach anybody, but it is the key to everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you got to let go. You got to know how to let go.
Yeah.
And let something else happen that maybe is wiser than the thing that got you into the conflict in the first place. Your thinking or whatever, your best strategies, or let me figure this out. Whatever that is, your kind of conditioned responses, it probably is what led you into this situation. So let something else come online. Maybe the whole body situation can come in. But yeah, I think that's part of it. Is we don't know that surrender move, let go. And I was on a podcast recently. I was like, we gotta die a bunch in this life. Your idea of who you are has to die a little bit. That's how you change.
Right.
You gotta die a little bit all the time.
How do you make that not scary?
Why?
I guess you approach it with curiosity.
No, but why not be? It is scary.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't make it not scary because it is. It's vulnerability. You know, we talk about it gives you strength and it's all these things. Absolutely, but you could also die.
Right.
To be vulnerable is to be on the edge. You know, we talk about, you know, and when I would practice Aikido and you do it like an overhead strike, you're bearing your chest. In that moment, you're able to generate the most strength, but you're also leaving yourself the most exposed. It's a risk that you take. It's inherent in life, and I think that's actually part of our maturation, is knowing the fragility of each moment, the risk in each moment, and not to live our lives or even be coerced into avoiding these risks all the time, and then more and more cornering ourselves into some comfort place, but to know that there's inherent risk, and sometimes we choose that because it develops us, it grows us. So I can't make it not scary.
Yeah, one of the things you talk about in the book around fear is that you don't overcome the fear. You
just shake.
Right. Yeah.
You just shake.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the best I got. That's why I was like, nobody wants to heal. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff, because I'm not going to tell you, and then you're going to feel peaceful all the time and happy, and everything's going to be unicorns and rainbows. You will probably feel your love more intensely than you ever could have dreamed. But you'll also get real scared, and you'll shake. You'll feel real sad. That's the journey.
Yeah.
I can't give it a better tagline. Make it more appealing. And we can't avoid those things. But the problem is that oppression makes sure that some people experience certain things more. And that's the point that I think is really important.
Can you talk about the experience of trust with your daughter, the story you give around her trying, and it's this mutual trust where it's trust to risk and then trust to, do you know what I'm talking about?
Sort of, but it seems it's just finish it, and then I'll talk about it.
Well, there was this trust that you had in allowing her to take the risk, and the trust that she had in knowing you would allow it.
Yeah, I think it's attachment theory stuff in some ways. Like trust is that field of like risk and safety. How do I do it? And so she, in her developmentally, she's taking risks. She does things now that I'm like, I joke all the time that like parenting, most of what I do is like geometry, physics, because I'm like, okay, how close do I have to stand so that if she falls off of that, I can catch the back of her head? I'm always doing calculations. And I try not to be like, don't do that, be careful. Yeah. But I have to go, I'm just going to stand over here just a little bit and keep talking to you just in case I have to, That's the relationship we're in. She's constantly taking risks. And she's also doing that because she trusts that I am there. She doesn't want me hovering over her, but she also has something in her that's like, my papi might catch me. My papi cares about me. My papi's going to let me take appropriate risks. So that's that expanding. She's developing her self-trust, but it's happening in the context of this trust that we cultivate together. But it's, risk. She's full on risk.
Yeah.
Full on, we're hanging off of things, we're climbing on things. I'm like, okay, all right. And our knees get scraped sometimes. We get hurt. Those things happen. But we're building trust.
How do you, so you're saying like, okay, I'd move this way and I'd be in conversation with you, but my attention is also over here.
Yeah.
So as a parent, like how do you practice presence then?
I'm present in a couple places at once. I was thinking about this because I was like, meditation teachers will tell you got to be, present, sit here very still and be present. I was like, why don't we ever have parents teaching meditation classes? Because the level of complexity I have to hold in a moment should be taught.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The kind of presence that I have to have should be taught. It's not like, oh, you ascend because you get rid of all that and all these relationships. Yes, I get that. I understand that. And why isn't it also an ascension? That I can be deeply present with you and know mathematically exactly where my child's head is at the same time.
Yeah.
Don't you think we should be training for that? Because that's the deep, it's also care. It's like the presence of care, too. And we don't really train for that. It's not just my singular body. I can feel that that's also part of my body. This person is so deeply connected to me that I'm like, I know what's happening. I know how she moves. I know what's happening, and I can really be present with you too. I don't know. It just happened. I didn't know it was there, but now I know what can happen.
I'm wondering, you describe a somatics practice, the mutuality.
Yeah.
And you describe it as like the practice is putting a hand on one person, they put a hand on you.
Yeah.
And you try and feel them at the same time that you feel
Exactly.
you.
Yeah.
And it kind of sounds like that to
that's
some degree, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not over in you, and you're not, and I'm not also hiding so much. I'm not expending my energy in that way. I'm actually in an easeful place where I'm allowing the transmission. I'm allowing myself to be felt. I'm allowing myself to feel you. But yes, it's that flow of things. Like multiple things can happen at once.
And that's really hard. Like I often find that I am lost in someone else. Like I transport myself into the other person, and I feel like I'm seeing the world through their eyes. I'm seeing myself through their eyes. I had this very crazy moment where I was in this yoga class. I'll never forget this. It was so bizarre. But I went to get a block, and I was walking back to my mat, and there was this guy, and he was looking at me, and I like saw who he was looking at, and it was different than the person it was at a time where I was going through like a lot of self-work and a lot of shifting of my self-perception and the self-talk that I was doing. At the time, I was like hypercritical of myself. And I realized that the person he was seeing was very different than the person that I would often see in the mirror. And it just was like this huge revelation for me of who others see me as, where I feel like I realized in that moment when I'm like transporting myself into you to see me, I'm just seeing me through my own critical eyes, right? Not your unbiased eyes. It's this very interesting experience.
I thought you were going to give me a telepathy tape story for a minute. Did I listen to that? I love the telepathy tapes. I was like, ooh, what did you see? Yeah.
It's really hard to feel your own self and then the other and not project onto the other person.
Yes, it can. The hard part is the unexamined projection. And seeing that is good, because then you go, oh, that's somewhere to look. Right. I think all of it, presence is ease. I know it may sound weird, but presence is, you were asking me again in the green room, are you nervous? And I was like, I don't get nervous. Maybe I should, but I'm going to be myself. Yeah. Because then I won't be like, oh, I left them with somebody who was pretending to be Prentis Hemphill. Or I'm leaving with the shame of hiding myself. I'm just going to be myself, which means you're going to have whatever judgments or assessments you have about who I am, and I can't control that. You're going to be like, I don't like that. Ooh, I like that. Oh, I had fun here. Ooh, I hated that. What can I do? What can I do about that? So I leave you with your assessments, but I live with my own ease.
How do you balance the desire to be your most authentic self, understanding and being attuned to the energy of the other person and what they need? So being malleable in a way of, I'm not necessarily going to approach you in the way that I approach this person and this person and this person. I'm going to attune, see what their energy is, kind of align, meet them where they're at. But how do you do that and maintain authenticity? And this kind of like, this is me, take it or leave it. Like, is that...
That's interesting. I don't know that I try to give people what they need.
Okay. Okay.
But maybe that's a character flaw. You mean just being responsive to people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's... My answer is going to be ease again.
Yeah.
My answer is going to be ease and flow. I don't know how to anticipate what you'll need. Something in you will activate something in me, and that's just what's going to happen. And maybe something in you is activating something in me because of some other story that's running in me. And that's good for me to know. But it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. You don't have to over effort. That's my message. If nothing else, y'all, let's cut down on that efforting. You know what I'm saying? Some of that's fake. Let's cut down on being fake. For real.
Yeah.
Because when you're fake, you can't learn. You can't be real with yourself. You can't be real with each other. You can't really change. If we are a room full of people that are not fake and we know that we mess up and that we fail, I failed this week at something big. I messed up. Okay. What you gonna do? What am I gonna do? Just lower the effort, but increase the intention in a way. Like, lower the pretending. We are all, especially social media, I feel that pressure too. I'm like, gosh, this is like everybody is an actor.
Yeah.
Everybody's acting out themselves. I had a reading this, my dear friend, Sonia Renee Taylor, gave me an astrology reading this week. It was on point. And she was like, if you are over-efforting, cut it out. It's not for you. It's not for you. So that's my message, is like, let it come easy. And even if you mess up, that is the lesson that you needed to get. That's it.
Right.
But when you're pretending on top of it, when you're trying to be a good person or a right person, you can't even get to the thing that you actually need to learn how to do, because you're in all of this pretend land.
Do you feel
Are
like...
you talking? What? Are you writing this down? Or are you talking on phone? You're texting a question? Yeah. Oh, you want to know my astrology? Okay, I'm a Sag Sun. Okay, wait. This is my disclaimer. I don't 100% believe in anything, so I just want to say that. I'm not a big astrology, nodes and houses. That ain't me. Respectfully to you and your thing. That's not me. But it's like when I'm with someone, I'm like, ooh, what do you believe? Let's do it. I'm into it.
Yeah.
So I got a reading. It was so on point that I'm like, maybe I'm into it now. But I'm a Sag Sun, Scorpio Moon, and Aquarius Rising. Totally. It totally makes sense.
Okay, so quick
Sorry.
question. No, I love that. I love that. This is interactive. When you said the thing about social media, could the perception that is being cultivated be the vision that someone wants of themselves?
Yeah.
Okay, so is that a bad thing?
Is it bad? Is it a bad thing?
Well, I guess bad is not a real word. We shouldn't use bad.
Is it a bad thing? No. I don't know. I don't think it's bad. I think...
Or is it fake if it's still a vision that we want for ourselves?
I think the fun part is understanding what is the distance between that and you.
Yeah. Sure.
That's the fun stuff. But you stay pretending your whole life, I guess you still won't ever be that person.
Yeah, okay.
You know?
I like that.
So you got to get real at some point.
Yeah.
To get there.
Cool.
Know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to close, before we get into the Q&A, I wanted to close with 3 prompts to leave you all with. And you can write this and just kind of take it home and think about it. But the first prompt is, what is a vision I have for myself in the future? The second question is, what is a practice I can implement to realize that vision? And the third is, what is a resource I can pull on to help me with that practice? So I just want to kind of have you walk away feeling like there's something you can really implement now that's real. Okay, first one. What is a vision you have for yourself in the future? What is a practice you can implement to realize that vision? And the third is, what is a resource that you can draw upon to assist you in that practice? I love this like heady, I think you gave a lot of tangible stuff. And I love that because I said this to you before, I've been in so many rooms where all we're doing is like brainstorming without action, and it drives me insane. And so I really want people to walk out of here feeling like they have action. They have not necessarily homework, but just something to chew on and actually implement. So do you have anything that, before we get into the Q&A, that you feel like is pressing, or something that you want to share that you feel like would be helpful or important in this moment?
I think whatever practice you generate, find something that makes you tremble and ride that edge a little bit. Because that edge is the unraveling, the undoing, the changing. And if there's not much in your life, not everything, I don't want people to just be dysregulated all the time, but in some ways, if there's something you really long for, find the edge. Ride it with consciousness, with awareness, stay there, and watch yourself open. I think sometimes we're so scared of the tremble because we're like, oh, I'm dysregulated. It's like, dysregulation is a thing, and there's this like place where change is on the other side of the tremble. That's what I want you to know. You got to break open a little bit in order to let something new root in. So that.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And just having agency too.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because when you recognize, like if we're talking about the potential, the uncovering of your potential, and realizing that there are these structures that have created visions for you, taking agency and being the breaker, right? Breaking that mold is so terrifying. And also, I feel like now I'm like, oh, I want fear. Like, I'm like, give me the fear, because I love this idea of the edge, because the edge is unfixed, it's malleable. It always, like, when you get to your edge, the edge then expands. And you'll get to your edge, and the edge will then expand. And you'll just forever be expanding when you're getting to your edge, because, yeah, you're always evolving and growing. I love that.
We're going to need that edge a lot right now.
Yeah.
We're going to have to find the edge. We're going to have to ride the edge. I hope we know that things that we've done before are not going to work in the same way. I was just talking to someone a few days ago saying, like, there used to be a point in time where it felt like our outrage would make something move. But when the paradigm has accounted for your outrage and figured out how to use it, configure it, it doesn't do what you thought it did anymore.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that we're not outraged, but it means the reactive parts of ourselves, how do we work with that reactivity, with that fear, and what are the new things we will do? Where are those trembling edges? I think we have to find them in a different way right now.
I think the change that occurs from outrage is what I was talking about at the beginning, is that it's fleeting, because it's based out of fear. Like, I'm changing because I'm in fear of your outrage, rather than it being a grounded moment of understanding why there's outrage and really getting into the root of it to some degree. Because I see, like, I don't know, all the stuff that happened after 2020, and you saw all these cities who were like, okay, now we're going to defund the police and all this stuff. And then they backtracked because they just reacted out of fear. They were like, I don't want my city to go up in flames. Let me just appease so that I can suppress the outrage. But there wasn't actually an underlying shift.
Well, I think that's the issue. I think the outrage is necessary, needed. It's not. I think what wasn't happening was the other organizing that would put, like what people are saying right now, like, I don't want to be on the front lines, I'm tired. There's some people that have not been carrying their weight.
Sure.
And so now it's like, that outrage didn't have anywhere to go because those people hadn't been organized well. Like, a lot of these white people out here
Yeah.
that are succumbing to these ideologies and these myths of supremacy have not been organized by the people they would trust to actually transform and reshape who they could be now. And so they are being organized by forces that say, they don't want you to be here, they don't want you to exist, they're anti-white, etc. When it's like, who is organizing people to understand that there's another way that we can be? There's another way you can be. It's not about you.
Right.
It's not in the context of violence and, white genocide, which is such a, that is outrageous to me.
Yeah.
That is outrageous to me.
Yeah.
But who is organizing those folks? And I know there are people, so please don't at me. There are people that I honor and respect, but there's not enough. And so, yes, people's outrage didn't move people, but there's other things that need to move in order for that to actually fall in place.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we aren't outraged. I feel rage, I feel outrage, I feel anger, I feel all of that. All of it. I cycle through it every day. What I'm saying is that it doesn't, we are in such an inflamed moment, and they are accounting for our outrage and our rage. They're accounting for it and using it in a different way than we've seen before. I'm still gonna feel what I'm gonna feel, but I also have to understand the context that I live in this moment. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Some of that.
I like that. Good. All right, we'll take some questions. Catherine, do you have the question? So if you have a question, make sure to text it into...
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I did my big 3.
Okay. All right. How can I be more decisive and confident in my decisions and choices when second guessing and overthinking make me feel wrong or incorrect?
Do you want to tell me who you are or not? If it's silent, then I'll just assume you don't. Okay. Well, I'm kind of in this too. It's like another level of intuition I've been dropping into. And I talk about it as like I'm getting a little weirder. And that helps me drop into it. But, it's like listening into ourselves, which is where I think decisiveness and confidence comes from, is listening to ourselves. I think it's like you get better at it the more you try. And you might try, and then you realize, oh, I thought I was listening to myself, but that was actually listening to, some other story that lives in there. But then even that knowing, oh, that wasn't really it, I think it keeps pointing you in the right direction of how to trust in ourselves. So I think it's like this developing self-trust is the root, and taking the risk to try and maybe mess up, because maybe you haven't been practiced at listening, so maybe it's gonna you're gonna mess up. So you're just gonna have to mess up. I mean, I'm gonna have to tolerate messing up. It's that whole getting real, all that. You're gonna mess up, but you're gonna hopefully get deeper in the more you try. Second guessing, overthinking. Maybe this is also an astrological question. I don't know you, and I don't know astrology, so. But second guessing and overthinking, I think it's like feeling wrong and incorrect. I really want to break out, not just you, but everybody. It's like this good, bad binary is sort of what I've been pointing to. We're always trying to be good so that we're not bad. And that's what I mean about being a process. Like if you really can sit with yourself, meditate with, I'm a work in progress. Yes, I will disappoint. It might hurt people. I might mess up. But there's something that part that can't be touched. There's something in me that is beyond value. It's not like I'm self-worth, I have worth. It's beyond even that concept. It's so vast and real and constant. It's not like, am I worthy, am I valuable? it is beyond those concepts that we've created as human beings to decide whether we like something or someone or whatever it is. There's something in you that is beyond that transcends even those flimsy little concepts. That is the part of you that can learn and grow. So I think practicing listening to that part, and then working with that sense of failure, messing up, being wrong, you're just gonna have to stew in it. There's no way to avoid it, unfortunately. Sorry.
How?
I don't think. Maybe somebody's gonna come and figure out a shortcut, but I've looked.
What was it like for you when you turned 24 after believing you were not going to pass 23?
It actually was like a little bit, like I dissociated. I was kind of like, what is this strange world I'm in? And it happened to me again when I turned, I had this other thing once I got past 23. This is what happened. Once I got past that, I thought, well, I think I'll die at 42.
Whoa.
And now I'm 43. So that didn't happen.
Do you have a new date?
What'd you say?
Do you have a new age?
No. Now I think I'm over it. Okay. I think I'm over that thing. Okay. I think I'm over it. Who knows? But yeah, I kind of was in an expanse. I didn't know where I was. It was disorienting but freeing. And I kept living somehow. It's really strange.
Huh. When you find yourself in a situation where you want to increase your presence while amongst others, what are some things you can focus on or use to tap in?
I feel the bottom of my belly, sometimes my toes. I drop in and down. I don't know if that makes sense, but I bring my attention in and down. And I say the thing that maybe I'm scared to say. I think it will make this person go away or stop liking me. I say it anyway.
Yeah.
And then usually I arrive back, when I do that.
And okay, thank you for this amazing conversation and for grounding us. My question is to you, what is the connection between the surrender healing you're describing and liberation? And that's from Raka.
That's who?
Raka.
Rock?
Raka.
Raka. Hi, Raka. How you doing? Surrender and liberation. Well, I think it's like liberation is this big word. And maybe people have ideas, but a lot of us don't really know what we mean by it and what it will feel like. Or we have kind of like, this will be in this place and we'll move this here and then it'll be liberation. But I think it's that, I think surrender is going to get us there, but surrender changes, it changes your priorities. It changes how you believe life should be lived. It changes who you think you are. Like when you surrender in the healing process, or I know this through body work, I don't know it in, this is what I mean somatically. It's like I can feel something bigger. I can feel aliveness. I can feel aliveness and the aliveness that is in everything. And that has reshaped the idea of liberation I had, that I was organized into. My felt sense has changed even what that is, what I long for, what I feel like I'm moving towards when I'm thinking about liberation. It's like an inside-out experience. And so I do think that's part of the thing. It's like we're moving towards liberation. It's going to have to be both inside and outside. And not let's all go away and, whatever, disconnect forever. But it's an inside-outside. It's an inside. We're pattern-making creatures. I'm going to, like a spider creates a web, I'm going to create a web of my unconscious material and unprocessed stuff, of relational webs. I'm gonna hang out with these kind of people. I'm gonna do this kind of work. I'm gonna organize in this way. I'm gonna create a web that mimics what I believe is true. And the more I surrender and let go, the more that web becomes, there aren't the words for it.
Webby.
No.
I tried.
Oh no, I might have to hold on. There's a word, or I don't know the word.
You gotta create it.
Somebody probably already did. To be honest, humans have been around a long time, and there's a lot of languages.
Can you talk more about discerning the difference between wanting and longing in the body?
Yeah, I think of wanting as like, that craving feeling you get, and you know it's not gonna last. I want this thing, but I know it's gonna be gone before I even have it. You know what I'm talking about? If I get this, I want this. Oh, I gotta have this. And it's so charged, and it will never live up to what, the thing you want it to be. I was walking down the street in Berkeley recently, and I saw in the window of this thrift shop this purse that all the cool girls had when I was in the 7th grade. It was a Dooney and Burke purse.
Yeah.
Hideous, actually. Like a hideous purse. And I saw it, and I was like, there it is for $15 in Berkeley. And I was like, Mom, I really want this purse. And she's like, that purse is $120.
Yeah.
There's no way. But I wanted it. But what I wanted was the acceptance.
Yeah.
That I thought, did I really want a Dooney and Burke purse? No. I wanted the belonging, or I longed for belonging, and it produced this want in me. That gets, it's like, let's put all these things in front of people and pretend like it's acceptance and belonging and all these things. But they're not. They never are. They fall away, And we can have things. I mean, I have things that I love to look at or inspire me or move me, but I think that wanting, that craving, that grasping always tends to fall away. There's something underneath. It's like, get to the underneath.
Yeah.
And then see if you still want a Dooney and Burke purse.
Okay. How can we incorporate somatics into a practice of decarceration? Thinking specifically around incarcerated individuals whose very experience in carceral spaces relies upon separation of self and dislocation from others' geographies and one's personal world making.
I think, I've done some somatic work with people who are inside, but I always find that it's like there's such a mutuality there, because I feel like they know, they can know somatics and embodiment in a way that is different than we can. And so I feel like I've had teachers that are incarcerated that are teaching me about embodiment, about presence, about feeling, about connection, about protection, about safety. I did a training years ago with folks that had just within the year had gotten out. And I remember there's like a practice where you walk through the room and we just kind of feel, and people were walking in a circle right behind each other. Because I was like, just walk in the room. And everybody, the embodiment was walking in formation. And I was like, stop, y'all. Let's look at what has been embodied. And it was like a portal into what did they come to embody through incarceration?
Totally.
What is the embodiment of incarceration? And what is the path into, because that middle space in the room, I was like, there's so much opening here. We're not moving towards the opening. Why aren't we moving towards the opening? And there's risk, and there's all these things that can happen in that open space. And so it was like, how can we practice? And to me, again, it's very mutual. It's like we can notice and we can practice, and people can teach me things about feeling and presence in such in environments that are so anti that people can still find it. Do find it all the time. Find it without it being called somatics.
Right.
Find it because it's just there, but you find it in these little pockets. So I think it's, and then there's a whole thing I could say, we could be here all night about just like how the embodiment of our current systems creates the logic of incarceration, or like it makes sense inside of how we structure the world and the ways that we treat each other, even people who are not incarcerated, the rigidity of how we treat each other, all of our tactics around non-changing, non-accountability, expulsion, all these tendencies and trends create then, I think, the carceral system itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We could talk about that for,
I mean,
so long.
When dealing with a bully who approaches conflict through mainly domination and oppression, is there hope for forming connection or relational healing when they are not able or willing to surrender or die a little bit to reconfigure their worldview? If not, is our biggest hope to outnumber them and push out the bullies? Thank you so much for being here.
Is this a metaphor? The bully. The bully. I'm not gonna pretend like I know the answer to this. I have some ideas, but I don't think I have the answer yet. I'm listening. Yeah, is there hope? Yeah, there's hope. I don't know exactly how to get to it yet, but there's hope only because, when I was talking to you earlier, there's something in us. My partner's always like, you talk to everybody. I be talking to people at the grocery store, at the coffee shop. I'm like, I love to talk to strangers. I have a hard time talking to people I know. But people I don't know, I'm like, I'm in. But I think it's, I'm always looking for that part in them, which I have never not found it, really, that is present, is aware. There's always something in someone, like a kernel of light or whatever it is. And I try to talk to that when I talk to people. I try to talk to that part of them that is aware, that is awareness itself. So that gives me hope, just that practice gives me hope. So I do have hope, but that doesn't mean that just talking to that part is going to be able to move through the contractions when they may be well practiced and reinforced, and the threat that people are experiencing, the fear. I mean, because to me, the bully is terrified. Yeah. To me, the bully is terrified. That doesn't mean that I'm absolving them of anything, but I think there is a fear inside the bully, a fear of their own self. I don't know yet how to change that dynamic, but I know that there is hope. But I also think to your second point, the fixation on the bully is part of the problem too. So moving our attention a little bit away from the bully, but also from, it's not just the bully, it's also the celebrity, it's the whatever that dynamic is, where we take somebody and make them pedestaled or whatever, we take them out of our same plane. Some of that's gotta, it doesn't mean that people can't be special or, they're fancy or you like them a lot. But there's no real difference. Fundamentally, there's no real value difference. So I think we've all got to kind of break up with that feeds this outsizing of individuals and traps them in a way away from their own humanity and connection. So I think it's about that bully, but it's also, I think we got to disperse the work a little bit. It's actually not so much about them.
I wonder if, too, this is something around, like, who the message is coming from, where you're not going to be the person, like, the general you is not going to be the person for everyone to change that other person. Recognizing that the messenger...
Yeah, but I don't think anybody's going to walk up to Donald Trump right now and have him go like, oh yeah, I feel connected to my inner child right now. I don't think there's one person on earth that's going to do that. I guess what I'm saying is I think there's a lot of other things that have to change, and then that becomes more possible.
Yeah.
But we have been in a long move towards this moment.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think my whole life I thought this moment would happen. You know what I'm saying? I was like, we're headed to that bad place.
Yeah.
We're headed there.
Yeah.
And then,
we're here.
Yeah. but we're here, and there's other places that we are too, and I think that's what I'm saying. Is like,
Yes.
put your attention on where else we are, and the bully is important. The bully can do a lot of damage, and is. And what are we divesting from that makes the bully less possible?
I like that. How does our visioning relate to or intersect with our soul, and how would you define soul?
Oh.
Light work.
I was telling somebody, I was like, I get questions. It's like, what kind of questions do you get when you go out on your book tour? I get questions of like, what's the meaning of life, and what happens after death, and what's a soul? I'm like, what am I? I guess that's my fault. I don't know if I can answer that. What's a soul? What was the first part?
How does our visioning relate to or intersect with our soul?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can say I think there's something that you're here to do. What a soul is, I can't do all that. I mean, you know, psychedelics have been helpful in understanding somebody that actually, to me, raises more questions than provides clarity. I'm like, wait, what? So the soul is like an equation writing on a neon, yeah. What I believe, what I can wrap my human mind around somewhat, is that I think there's something inherent to each of us. There's something to express, and when we do it, we feel more ease. We don't, I think, then create more pain and trauma, and as much pain and trauma in the world. I think I can tell that I'm here to do some things when I feel the flow. I'm like, oh, that's the thing I was supposed to do. Got it. And maybe that's my imagination, but it makes my life feel well lived, and it makes the impact that I have feel in line with my intention. So I don't know what a soul is.
Do you feel like a soul was just someone else's vision that we've bought into and that we're just like endlessly seeking?
I feel like this is the high thoughts portion of that. I don't know. You got to say when you don't know. And I don't know if that's somebody's idea. I know what I can feel inside of myself.
Sure.
And that's something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like soul music. I don't know. I think that had something to do with the soul.
What is the nerdy topic that you would love to talk about if given the opportunity? Full nerd, full weird.
Don't do
full
this to
woo.
me.
You're going to get out.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. All right. It's a lot of.
There's only one.
I don't think we can do all these, but the thing I'm nerding out on right now that I'm trying to figure out how to share with the world is really nothing that hasn't been said before, but I'm really interested in stress. We were talking about this backstage, and shifting the conversation from strictly one about trauma and healing to stress and resilience, because I think that frame helps us to understand that life is going to have challenges, tragedies, pain, beauty, love, joy, awe. And when we face something, because there's a definition of stress, and I can't remember the scholar's name, Serafino, I think is her last name, but she says stress is basically, I can't remember the exact words, but it's the concern that we do not have the resources to face the challenges that we face. Right?
They liked that one.
I like it too.
I know.
I like it a lot too. I was like, wait a minute. And so that means that stress, in a way, itself is neutral. Because we can garner, accumulate, get the resources we need to face the challenges that we face. But if we're individualistic, it's hard to get those resources. It's hard to be in community and connection with enough people or even beings' life in order to be resourced to face the challenges that we face. So we are stressed. Trauma is an extreme stress. I did not have the resources. Or the resources I had in terms of my stress responses were overwhelmed by the experience. That's what creates the traumatic residue in our bodies and physiologically. So we focus on trauma, which is really important. I think it's really, really, really important. But I want to also expand the frame so that we're seeing stress, because I think that brings us back into connection with each other in a way that I think we are going to need, and need now. So I would really nerd out with you if you were to sit with me for an hour about stress and physiology of stress, what it means to get resource through people, through connection with nature, through all these places that we get resource to face challenges, and how we can practice around that for what's to come, how it helps us in conflict, crisis, and chaos, these things I've been thinking about a lot. Oh, and one nerdy thing. I was in conversation with somebody this week about one of my teachers I work with, Oscar Trujillo. He said that chaos is... Okay, wait. I want y'all to bear with me. Have y'all heard of 5 rhythms? Mm-mm. It's like a somatic practice. There's like these different rhythms you do practices. But the last one is chaos. And this woman, a white woman, went to the continent and she gathered these polyrhythms, and it's like chaos is this place where you're just supposed to let your body do everything. And so I was listening, and if you were into 5 rhythms and I said that wrong, my apologies. But I listened to the chaos rhythm and I was like, oh, that's polyrhythms. That's not chaos. I can hear all those rhythms. And I could dance to all those rhythms. And so what Oscar and I have been talking about is how chaos is actually, it's chaos theory. It has a logic in it, but it feels like chaos when it exceeds our capacity to decipher the patterns inside of it, basically. And we were trying to figure out, what are the somatic practices for chaos? And some of it is that perception of the logic inside. I'm sorry. Can you imagine being married to me? I think about my wife all the time. Because she'll be like trying to go to sleep and I'll be like, have you ever thought about, I just thought about this thing. And she's like, shh, stop talking. That happens every day.
Well,
yeah.
I think that you're brilliant, so.
Thanks.
I'm gonna be mindful of time, but
Yeah,
I
it's
really,
not a slumber party, y'all.
Yeah, I really loved this conversation. This
Thank you.
was so nice. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
So fun. Thank you.
Yeah. And if you brought your book, you want to get a quick sign.
Can I have those?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I like to take the questions home.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you all.
Yeah. But yeah, if you want to just come up and get your book signed, you can do that. If not, Honey Bar is open. There is another event here at 9, so we just have to clear the area so we can move the chairs out. But feel free to hang out in the lobby, and thank you so much.
Thanks. Y'all. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.